All right.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Sober Broker. This is episode one. I have my good friend and colleague, Walter Gonzalez.
Hmm.
Walter, welcome to the Sober Broker.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, man. I appreciate the invite, and I love what you're doing here, and that's why I put my hand up and said, "Yeah, absolutely. Let's help.
Yes,
Let's help some people."
I'm so glad you did. It's an awesome opportunity just to be able to collaborate with like minded folks who are in the real estate industry who have had previous run ins or struggles, with past addictions or just hangups that they've conquered or accomplished over their lifetime. I don't think that people talk enough about success, not the financial cost necessarily of success, but because everyone really understands that part, right? But the internal cost, the pressure, the constant self negotiation,
Yep.
quiet exhaustion that shows up just from the day to day, and it finally slows you down. There's an unspoken agreement, I feel like, in the business culture when like you're doing well, you don't necessarily speak about the things that are not going well, and that if you have momentum, you should probably just be grateful and keep pushing, right?
Right.
Keep closing those deals, keep making calls, keep going on appointments, things like that. But sometimes when you're winning on paper, it doesn't also mean that you're winning internally or that you feel great on the inside. And most likely than not, when you're privately trying to figure out how to turn the brain off and deal with those things, other things start popping up that you also have to deal with. Sometimes we kind of go over those things by having a drink or doom scrolling, or sometimes just hoping that those things work themselves out. But we don't have to just call it what it is. It's not the normal thing. Dealing with it and overcoming those problems is the ultimate way to be able to get past them and deal with them, not just constantly pushing them down. So that's what this is about. That's what Sober Broker is about. Not fixing anyone, certainly not preaching to anyone, but just slowing down the conversations enough to actually hear the truth.
Yep. Yeah, I love that, man. And while I was smiling like 98% of the time, it was like you were just speaking exactly what was happening to me at my busiest in real estate and all the stuff I was doing to keep going. And yeah, so yeah, let's dive into it because that's why I was smiling so big when you were talking about that, like just pushing through and just ignoring
Yeah.
stuff and just grind and close more deals. And yeah,
Yep.
dude, I just got lost.
Yeah. I think that's so common amongst, I mean, not even just in real estate, right? But just in life in general. I mean, it starts as a kid and how, your parents communicate with you. Do they talk about your behavior or do they kind of just sweep it under the rug? Like accountability starts at a really early age. And we can, dive into the metrics of, what makes you you. But ultimately, once you start having control over your life and what you're able to, really shapeshift into as you grow older and as you go through these things is uh, essentially what makes you is your ability to be able to overcome those things that you had no control over in your past. And now, as an adult, you have that control to be able to make your life whatever you want it to be. The clay and potter.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and I can speak to that too because part of my journey was looking back at all the stuff that um, during my childhood and different experiences, and for a long time I carried that. Oh, I'm the way I am because of this and because of that, and it's like,
Yes.
bro, you are like 20 years removed from all of that, and you're still carrying this with you and using and pointing to that as like I'm this way because of that. It's like now the big wake up point comes when you're like none of that stuff matters. Like that, yeah, that's a part of the story, but that's not your behavior today is your behavior. And you can try to blame anybody else you want, but at the end of the day, you have to you have to you have to manage that guy you shave with every morning in the mirror. So yeah, that speaks to me. Absolutely.
Yeah, amen. So, what did you have? I mean, how was your childhood? How was your upbringing and your relationship with your parents? Let's just start there since we had that conversation just a second ago.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in New Orleans. I still live in the area. So where I live, like if I left my office right now, I could be in the French Quarter in about 30 minutes. So
Awesome.
blessing and a curse, right? Like it's the culture, the people, the food, everything is amazing, but also part of that culture is just we find an excuse to party, brother. Like we anything there's festivals for everything. There's a strawberry fest, oyster fest, shrimp fest, live bands, beer tents. Like it's just all over. So a big part of my childhood was just growing up in a culture where drinking openly out in the streets in the morning, like it was just not it was just part of the norm. Like
Mm,
if you go to the French Quarter right now, it's 8:15 in the morning. There's somebody walking around with a beer in their hand in public, like, and it's not illegal. Like you can do that here.
yeah,
So part of my childhood was just being raised into that. Also my mother. I'll just speak openly about it. She was absolutely um, an alcoholic. Struggled with it for up until the point where she passed. My dad, on the other hand, was a little bit more solid and still is. Like what's really cool is I got to experience both worlds. Like one is just the alcoholic who was kind of all over the place, but she always like held a job and stuff like that. Not like the at on the severe scale of it, but nonetheless, I got to experience a lot of alcoholism on that part. But my dad's like a little bit more rigid, stern. He's like, no, I'm not doing that, or sets himself to something, and so I think that gave me a lot of strength too. Seeing him as the example.
sure.
Um, and then yeah, some wild stuff happened in my childhood, which I'll just keep that there. And caused my parents to get a divorce when I was about 10 years old. So immediately uprooted, like, and it was like it wasn't like a thing we saw coming. It was like a everything's done, everything unraveled. Me and my mom and my sister living in my aunt's guest bedroom, which really was just like a little utility room by the washer and dryer in the back of her house in New Orleans East. So yeah, that was obviously a part of the story, and so um, so I lived with my mom for a few years. Her and I'd see my dad on the weekends, and eventually moved in with my dad to go to high school in Metairie because it was a little bit better school than New Orleans East where I was living as far as public schools go, and finished out there. And so that's the childhood in a nutshell. Just seeing one parent openly have issues with alcohol, and on the other side, got to see my dad, which is a little bit like firmer, foundational, like it's just a stubborn guy, but in the best way possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not stubborn in a way that's like, oh, that guy's mean, but stubborn in his like resolve.
yeah,
So that I think ultimately that side of my family won in this scenario when it was time to get my life straightened out.
yeah. I always think it's interesting how we model certain behaviors from our parents from both sides. I can relate to your story. My parents split later, but it was as soon as I went to college. I had an older sister, so she was, at school, and I'm pretty sure my parents were just kind of waiting around for me to get out of the house for them
Right.
to be able to split. And because it was, I mean, like instantly. As soon as I went to college, I had my first game of the season where I was starting, and I was so excited. And I was like, "Mom, Dad, like, you have to come, come watch my game." And they came. They drove all the way from Asheville. At the time, I was going to school in Tennessee, and so they drove into Tennessee and watched my first game. And I noticed, one was standing on one side of the field, the other was standing on the other side.
Oh
And I was
wow.
like, "Huh, what's going
Right.
on there?" And then I came home from Christmas break. My mom was moved out. They didn't tell me at this point, so I just kind of like started assuming that things were going on, and then reality hit as soon as I got home. And uh, it was kind of the opposite, I guess, as far as like the dynamic. My mom didn't necessarily have a drinking problem. She definitely had issues with like trauma and dealing with her emotions, and like uh, she's really the one who taught me how to mask a lot of stuff and just be able to put on a mask and pretend like everything's okay. My dad was the alcoholic, and that's where I got my ability to be able to, yes, be rigid and structured, but also uh, use anger as a motivation. and also to learn how to drink and deal with masking and that resolve. So that's a little bit about my childhood. I had a great upbringing. My parents loved me, but they didn't teach me how to speak about my feelings. They didn't teach me how to necessarily resolve my own issues. It was kind of like a you go deal with it, we don't have time kind of thing. And so uh, as I've gotten older, I've had to really work through a lot of those things. And a lot of that came through just me learning through making a lot of mistakes
Right.
and constantly, putting myself down, putting myself in worse positions because again, without those abilities to be able to like how learn how to deal with things, I really just had to teach myself through those mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what parts of your life were already fractured before like your kind of addiction started showing up?
I would say around the 10-year mark. And that's, not necessarily because of the parent divorce, but there was something pretty significant that uprooted everything. So immediately, I think that's where I got that feeling of like, I'm not safe. This is, I didn't feel safe because before that, before the, what hit the fan, like similar to you, like, look, and I want to be very clear when I say something else. Both parents loved me, always had food in the fridge, always had, clean clothes. So, and, not anything a knock on the parents themselves, just the scenario and situations that got brought up. So that's I think that was the first fracture was just the way everything went down and the way everything was immediately uprooted to where, um, you know, like you said, dude, I was, playing football. Um, Parents, always came to events, played baseball, organized sports. Parents were always there. And then, it's tough because, everything was great. So it's what's weird is I had a taste of both, right? A normal, safe, everybody's in the house, everything's good. And then the opposite of that, like drastically,
Yeah.
was I think the first fracture. Dude, I was playing piano, like a piano lessons, like total up until 10, like everything was what I would consider like the perfect family upbringing for the most part. Then the immediate shift. So I think that was, the first fracture if if we're looking back and being honest. But again, man, it's like when you get to a certain point in your recovery, when you start taking that road, you start looking back at all that and you're like, man, this stuff that happened decades ago is still controlling me and controlling the way I view myself and like me shifting blame on what I'm doing today on that. It's like, bro,
Mm,
at some point you grow up and you're like, all right, that's enough. It's it's time to step into our own.
yeah. It's interesting how our internal dialogue after a certain point begins to shift, but I feel like those that are kind of not changing other areas of their life, like, quitting drinking or drugs and allowing themselves to really feel those feelings. Because, I mean, that's what, for me at least, that's what really got me started on, drinking and drugs is the ability to be able to disconnect from reality
Yep.
and
Check out.
avoid the pain and check out completely and just continuing to push those feelings as far down as I could just because the more I felt them, I didn't know how to deal with them because I was never taught necessarily how to deal with the pain and the feelings. And I think also kind of going back to our parents and how we were raised at a certain point was it's a lot of it's generational. Like my dad, he came from a farmer background. I mean, he lost his mom when he was 7 years old, and so his stepdad raised him, and his stepdad had three other sons that were his blood, and so my dad was kind of like always the last person, and you don't understand these things about your parents until you're older, maybe start asking questions or they just finally start opening up about their history. But I mean, he was physically abused, mentally abused, emotionally abused because he was in a position that he was always put last, and he always had the most chores. And like I said, my step granddad physically abused him, and so there's a lot of aspects about my dad that I didn't know as a kid. Like, why is he always so angry? But then when you get older, like, okay, that all makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
I understand, why you acted that way when I was a kid, or why you chose to drink, or why you behaved in that way, because not only did no one else teach you how to deal with those things, you had a bunch of other stuff that I'd never had to personally deal with. And so I think a lot of it's perspective and just understanding, where your parents came from, the struggles that they had. And obviously, you know, we wish that it wouldn't necessarily impact us negatively to put us in a certain path in life. But in the same light, I think we talked about before we started recording on our show, just how when you do something, you just kind of just do it, and you kind of learn as you go. And I think that's a huge part about recovery, and just being able to truly advance your life is being okay with how things were, because now you're in a position to where those things don't necessarily matter as much. Obviously, they still made you who you are, but now you can really take hold of what your life is and turn it into what you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 1,000%. Like working through the process and all the stuff I used to blame everything on all the other stuff we already talked about.
Mhm.
Um, and so my mom was already having issues with alcohol, like right before my parents got divorced. And then afterwards, like just really went off the rails. Like, she would come home from work, go straight to our local pub on Haynes Boulevard in New Orleans, and she'd be there from like 5 to 10, 5 to 11. And on the weekends, dude, like sometimes she would just go to the French Quarter and be gone for like, I don't know. She'd leave on like a Friday and come home on Sunday. Now, again, I had an older brother in the house. We always had food. Like it was never like an unsafe thing necessarily, but for sure, like not there. But when I went through recovery and I went through the steps, I was like, you start being less selfish about it
Mhm.
and start, like you just said, like, hold on, these are our parents. Like when my mom was going through all this stuff, she was younger than I am now. So here's the reality of what happened. My, something wild happened in my family that I don't want to openly drag out. Um, Uproots everything. My mom's high school sweetheart divorced. Her family, so all the same stuff happened to her. She's just dragging us along with her.
Mhm.
And it's like, as soon as I realized, okay, my mom was in her 30s, divorced from her high school sweetheart, her family got split up. My brother's off doing something else. Um, it's like, man, if you're looking for a reason to go off the rails, those are pretty good reasons. Now, is it, and there's the difference between like responsibility and fault and like, hey, could she have done better? Sure. But like, if we're really analyzing the situation, like, that's like I said, that's pretty. If there's a reason or a cause that's going to cause somebody to go off the rails, that's some pretty solid reasons.
Yeah.
So having that just again, like, and I didn't realize how selfish I was being with my interpretation of how all that went down until I started looking at it from her perspective and thinking like, that's a lot. That's a lot for anybody to handle. Again, could she have done differently or better? Absolutely. Like, but again, just if you're being honest about it and like, that's pretty pretty rough on her too, So,
Yeah.
again, it's about having faith and not faith, but grace and empathy when you get to a certain level of recovery and like, oh, okay, like you said with your dad, like, oh, okay, I get it. And same with my mom, it's like, okay, I get it, but I didn't get it at first. I had to get my life right and start doing the steps and work through the recovery and start healing that stuff to understand where other people were at and why everything went down the way it did.
Totally. Yeah. I remember there's this one time in like my mid 20s where I like asked my dad to come out and have a beer with me. This is obviously before sobriety. And we met for a beer, and I was just like blaming him for everything. I mean, I was grilling him. You should have done this, you should have done that. Da, 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 da. At the very end of it, he was just like, "Are you done? Like, are you done
Right.
grilling me right now?" And we didn't talk for a while after that because he just thought I hated him, and maybe it came off that way because I took all my frustration over like my misunderstanding of life and confusion about life and just directed all I am. And it's funny how uh, having kids will kind of change how you view things. And I had a little girl at the time, and obviously I started becoming the parent that I needed and that I wanted to have as a kid. Um, and so automatically, I looked at how things were, and I again, I put the blasters on him, and I made him feel probably pretty bad about himself at the time. And again, we didn't talk for a couple of years, but now, him and I openly talk about everything, and he's in recovery himself. I mean, he hasn't quit drinking all the way, but he doesn't get drunk, and he doesn't drink to necessarily avoid things anymore. I call him every day. We talk often. So our relationship now is phenomenal. But as as a young parent, when I started being able to parent the way that I wanted to, yeah, my frustration towards him really peaked, and towards my mom too, because there's a lot of things that I wish I had like happened differently in my life. But in the same stint, I had the opportunity of being a parent and recreating those moments to, how I wanted them or needed them to be. Um, but shortly after, my story is I was married and we had kids when I was really young. And going into young parenthood, we, just weren't ready for all the things that you kind of have to face. We didn't go to like premarital counseling. We didn't go to any counseling, but we didn't really deal with the nuances as being young parents and the ever evolving change that happens in our lives. And when you're bringing up a young child, it's important for you to have that understanding again so that you can, better direct your kids. Well, her and I eventually got a divorce only after 2 years well, my daughter was 2 years old, but we've been married, I guess, for like 3.5 years. And at that time, you know, I just got into real estate. Like I moved out of the house 3 days after that I had got my real estate license, and we had separation paperwork signed and all that stuff. So it was like a whole new chapter was beginning for me, and I had a huge opportunity to be able to make something great out of it. But instead, I kind of squandered it and started just kind of drinking and covering up, the pain that existed so that I could try to be a better parent and be more present for my kid without just getting soaked into, the feelings that I had. Um, and so a huge portion of my life was just running from the past, running from the pain, running from the fear, running from the guilt or the shame or the grief over, wanting to form a better life, but seemingly, ruining it in the same light, through the same actions that I was taking, trying to run from it. Does that relate to you at all?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially like the early parent part. So my wife and I have been married since 2003. We had our daughter in 2002, so she was about 5 or 6 months old at our wedding. We wanted to get married before, but my wife was. We just found out she was pregnant, and she's like, "I don't want to be pregnant at our wedding."
In
So
a
we
wedding
waited.
dress? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we waited a few months. We toughed it out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we've been through together, and having kids early. My daughter is my oldest daughter is 23. Youngest is 14, and my middle daughter's 21. So we got started early too. And what's interesting about what you said was, I I didn't really. So during my 20s, what's weird about my situation is like during my 20s, I was what I would consider like a normal like New Orleans drinker, right? Have a few drinks on the weekend, LSU Saints games, and then Monday through Friday I could be okay. Matter of fact, I remember vividly, like I could, if I had beer left over in the fridge, like I literally didn't care, wouldn't touch it, wouldn't crack another one open until like Friday or Saturday when the work week was done. Um, and so my kids got to see kind of like normalish behavior. And then I got into real estate. And then that's the blessing and the curse of being self-employed, right? You get to choose your own hours and pick your own days. So when I was holding down like a steady job at the NASA facility, I had to be a little bit more tight with myself. But when I was working for myself, that's when the floodgates kind of opened. And so watching the kids and doing all that, I was trying to get my stuff together for years. And I remember going to a therapist about it. And of course, a therapist, the first thing they ask you is what? Tell me about your parents and your childhood, because
Yep.
that's usually where, a lot of those things come from. And what he told me was, so my mom would go to the bar, okay, when she got off of work. And I wouldn't go to the bar. I would just drink at the house and have, writing contracts or doing whatever and have a few glasses of wine or drinks of beer and just kind of check out. But I'm at the house. So I think it's okay. I think I'm different, right? And the therapist, what's really kind of eye opening is I explained all that to my therapist. He's like, so really, you're just mirroring your mom's behavior. And I was like,
Mhm.
He's like, "You're not going somewhere else." He's like, "But you're still like you're at the house, you're just checked out. You're not, you're there, but you're not there. You're using this thing to check out from the stress of the business, right? Take the edge off of the business. The problem is
Right.
this is a high stress business, bro. Like
Mhm.
three things happen every day that would be a great reason to be like, oh man, I really need to grab something on the way home. Like this day was stressful. So anyway, yes, I relate to a lot of that. The early marriage, having kids early, and sadly, my kids. I say sadly, but I take a lot of pride in the fact that my kids got to see normal-ish. They also saw the wheel when the wheels came off for me, um, but they also got to see me get it together.
Mhm.
And so I think that's really powerful for them to see. And they tell me they're proud of me all the time, and you know, and anyway, yeah, I can relate.
Yeah. I can relate with that too, especially the restoration part. Because I think it's important, for our kids to see things kind of fall apart and then come back together. Because, I mean, let's be honest, I don't think there's one person in life who hasn't had something fall apart and then have to, get it back together, whether
Yeah,
it be, drugs and alcohol related, whether it be just with their own
yeah,
personal life. Um, there's many pieces that make life of what it is. And I mean, it can be as simple as your car breaking down. You don't have the money to fix it. You don't have any personal issues going on, but you have, car issues. And how are you gonna, recoup from that? Are you gonna, readjust your budget and save money to where you can, pay a car or buy a car and, recover from that? Or, are you gonna let that moment kind of drive you down further into the ground?
yeah.
Um, Yeah, one thing you said was about the restoration of your situation. So me and my wife, we actually, so after a divorce, we spent 7.5, almost 8 years apart. And brother, I was living out of my car at
Oh
the
no.
time. During the time that there's something that happened at my ex-wife's place where she had the kids and the kids they wanted me to come over and be there with them. So I came over. Obviously, like I said, I was living out of my car, so not opposed to hanging out in someone's apartment for a little bit.
Right.
I don't care who it is. But at this point, kids wanted me over, so I came over and we were all just hanging out as a family. And God just kind of silently started speaking to me about, you need to restore your family. You need to put everything that happened in your past, to the side, and you need to work on, restoration. And I didn't want it. I didn't care if I was living out of my car, showering at the gym. Like I didn't want that because it had already caused me so much pain and anguish through my life. And um it's exactly what I needed to be able to get past it, though, was restoring the marriage, being okay with what had happened, and just really taking it and making it a part of who I am, not running from it, not feeling the pain from it, not being fearful of, the future if you were to recommit, but ultimately just grabbing life by the horns and, riding that bull. Um, and seeing my kids see, see me taking accountability, seeing my ex-wife taking accountability, and us both reforming our marriage was probably one of the most beautiful parts about the process. And unfortunately, it took almost a decade to make. But life happens the way it is. God works in mysterious ways, and often um, we don't know the results of something until we just continue to stay committed and take that next step.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, mine was, I'd been knowing I needed to get it together, and more and more losing control of, uh, you know, so like I said, normal-ish drinking, and then eventually started to unravel. I would say in like my mid 30s, and then because I'm 44 today, and I got all this straightened before I turned 40 years old, and it was for me, my moment was, with the ebbs and flows of real estate and the roller coasters and deals closing, deals falling through, like, really, I was being inconsistent and not living up to my fullest potential, so I would fall behind on things,
Mhm.
but then you get a couple of big paychecks, you're back up, it's like almost like Vegas, right? Like, "Oh, I'm back up,"
Yeah.
I got it, and, what happened, so for me, it was my eye-opening moment was I'd fall behind on stuff, right? And I just had 2 deals close. I had, a good amount of money in my bank account. Let's just say like 15K. So I went from like 0 to 15, and, on the same day, my car got repossessed and my lights got shut off. I didn't realize my car got repossessed until my lights got shut off. So my lights, I was like, "Damn, the lights went out." I was like, "Let me just go pay the bill," because at the time, you couldn't do it online. You had to go show up in person. If your lights got shut off here, you had to go show up in person with cash. So I was like, "All right, let me go pay this." Walk outside and I see 2 tire streaks out of my front driveway. They came and took my car. And what's really sad about that, dude, is like I had the money like the week before this happened, I could have taken care of all of this. But I was
Yep.
just who knows what I was doing. I'm just like not living in reality, not taking care of my responsibilities, not,
Yep.
like I always hear one of my motivational guys say, I don't know which one, but you're behind on your promises. Um, so yeah, and this was about 4 or 5 days before my 40th birthday. And I was like, that's it. Like, dude, you're about to turn 40 years old. You got kids. Like, this is ridiculous. And it wasn't the first time that my lights had gotten shut off. And I always blamed it on like, oh, I think there's just an outage in the neighborhood. I'll call Clico and see what's going on. And it's like, no, bro, you had the money and you didn't pay the bill. So it's
Yeah.
just so weird, dude, when you're that like just oblivious to and what's really sad about all that, Patrick, is like it was never like I guess that was the most insidious part for me. Like as it was never like, oh God, dad's passed out in the backyard. Like I kept it under control, but everything else in the background was a mess. Like I would show up to listing appointments. I was closing deals. And that was the story I would tell myself. Like, oh, dude, you don't have a problem. Like you're out there doing things, you're, closing deals, and it's not you're not doing what you should do 100% of the time, but you're successful, you're running this company, like so anyway, that's the BS you feed yourself also when you have a problem you should analyze, you start negotiating with yourself or, telling yourself stories about how it's not that bad and like, "Oh, you're not homeless, bro. Like you're okay."
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was my moment,
Yeah.
You're
I'm only smiling because I struggled with almost the exact same thing. It wasn't the fact that I was, like you said, passing out in the backyard or anything like that. Like my use of that didn't ever get that far, but it was enough to keep me below what I needed to be. Like it was enough just to be able to keep me weighted down. It was enough for me to not care about paying bills on time and stuff like that. It was enough for me to care more about money in my bank account than spending it on, that or just the simplicity of like trying to improve my life, improve my credit, improve my financial situation by saving money. Like it was just enough for me not to do more than what I needed to do.
Yep.
Like the bare minimum was here. Like that's where I was.
Right. Yep. That's
Right at the
exactly the
bare
thing.
minimum.
Yep.
Yeah. So what finally, I mean, I know that moment had a significant shift. Was that the moment that you realized like I can't live like this anymore?
Yes, that was one of a couple. So it wasn't just as short and sweet as that. Before that, so before my drinking got to its worst, I would say in 2019 when Andy Frisella released the 75 Hard program. Um, I was always obsessed with that because it was something that was advertised as like mental toughness, grit, fortitude, all the stuff you look for. And I was looking for that. Like I read all the books, I read all of it, dude. Gorilla mindset, mindset this. Like I read all the books, but the problem with the books, for me at least, was like, okay, these are cool stories, but like, what? Tell me what to do. Give me something to do so I can do it. And so that was advertised as that. So 2019 is when I started it, and I'm on. I still, if I'm confident I would have finished it, because I was just that devoted to it. And what happened was on day 19, I still have the picture in my phone. It was April 25th. I purposely waited. So in that one, you have to do an outdoor workout regardless of the weather conditions. I was so
Yep.
fired up for this program, dude. I purposely waited till it was inclement weather. I waited till it was raining to go out to get my outdoor work done because I was just trying to get to that level. And I have a picture in my phone of me smiling like a crazy person. I had my phone in a little sandwich bag so I could keep it dry because I knew it was going to rain. So I was prepared. I have a picture in my phone of like me like smiling. And at the same time I had taken that photo, I did not realize that my mother was passed away on her couch, like half a mile to, maybe like a mile, mile and a half away from where I lived. So I take the photo, done with the workout. I have to bring my wife to an orthodontist appointment on the West Bank. And my sister called me. It's my sister's birthday. That's why I remember the date so vividly. She said, "Hey, mom hasn't called me to tell me happy birthday." And my mom always called her first thing in the morning and sang her happy birthday, like, sang it full blast. And I knew right then. I was
Something's
like,
up.
Something happened because
Yeah.
there's no way, no way. She never not called her. And I remember driving on it. My wife was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "I think my mom's gone." And she's like, "You don't know that." I was like, "I know that." So anyway, as I'm driving, I call and do a wellness check, have the police go by. Her window was open. So they climbed through the window and they called me up. They're like, "Hey, we got in." I was like, "Okay, cool. What's going on? Which hospital is she going to be at?" They're like, "When can you get here?" And I was like, mm, So we turned around and, I went to go meet the coroner at her apartment. They asked if I wanted to go in and see. I was like, "No, I don't want to go look." And I left straight from there and went right to the wine warehouse in my that's the name of the store in my neighborhood, and just from there it really went off for me. Um, because her and I had a lot of stuff that was left unsaid. Like she also shared like a lot of guilt with the stuff that we already talked about, and I don't feel like I gave her the freedom that I could have given her before she passed. And it was unexpected. Like, of course she had medical problems, but it was abrupt. Like it was not like something we were waiting on. It was like just gone. So, after that, I tried to use 75 hard to get sober because I was like, I was in a good groove. And if you looked at the app, it would be like day 4, fail, day 5, and I'd get to like day 6. And so I just kept trying 34 failed attempts. Um, until I finally realized, okay, this is not going to get me to where I need to get. I need to figure out what the root problem is. I need to dig that root out. So that led me to the 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 electricity and car repossession in the same day. So it was like 2 or 3 years. I'd say 2 years after that. No, 2019. So that would have been a year and a half, give or take. After my mom did, my mom passed. 34 failed attempts at 75 hard. Cars gone. That was it. So it was a mixture of all that. The 75 hard program, dude, I absolutely give all the credit to like me wanting to change, and giving me structure because before my just to show you how many times I failed, dude. My wife, but that's like I'm gonna make another run at this program, and she laughed in my face not in a mean way. That was the worst part about it. She wasn't being mean or condescending. It was just like very matter of fact because she's like, you need to give up on that. You're never going to do it. And like I said, what the most hurtful part was, it was not mean. She was just, she was going off of what I showed her. You know, she wasn't doubting me. She just like, you're not going to do it, man. And that was it. Between that and like getting once I got in the program, dude, and got the the first part figured out, 75 hard was like easy. Just to be honest with you, it was like, it was to me like from day one it was over. You might as well give me, if there's a medal to be had or a trophy, you might as well give that to me because it's done. And so yeah, since then I've done it, you know, 4 times. I'm on my 5th attempt right now. I started at the beginning of every year. It's like my refresher thing. So
Sure.
anyway, I know it's a very long way of answering your question, but there's a lot to it, you know.
Yeah, no, there's always steps and things that compound, to get you to where you're at. I'll tell you mine just shortly. So I was, when you get divorced, like you kind of obviously are, the single bachelor, single father, and you have a choice. You can pursue, you know, just having a relationship with your kids and maintaining your business and all that. But for me, like it was a whole new opening to everything. I mean, I had choices. I didn't have to run by anyone. Um, you know, I could do whatever I wanted on the week that I didn't have my daughter because we went week on, week off. And yeah, I could just kind of create things how I wanted. And so I started, obviously after a certain amount of time seeing people and trying to have new relationships and whatnot. And during 2020 COVID, I actually left Asheville, moved to Charlotte for a short time, and I met this girl, and she was fantastic. I thought that it was going to be, you know, the next marriage for me. I thought that it was going to be, the person I was going to spend my life with. And um, I was kind of still in the headspace of not necessarily taking control over my life, not, prioritizing what I need to prioritize. And I found myself in like financial ruin. And this girl had already gone through a divorce. She had gone through an affair on her. And so she, has been hurt in the past. And she had 3 lovely little kids, and they were all girls. So we had 4 girls technically, and between us both. And needless to say, it got to the point where I wasn't able to afford my part of things. And that started showing up, and frustration with her because obviously, I'm a man and I shouldn't have necessarily all those financial problems, especially if, I'm closing deals and making things happen on my end. I was just overspending, not budgeting, acting a fool with my money. And yeah, I just was not committed to building a future, but rather just expecting it to happen for me. So a big part was, since I had those financial issues, um, we kind of took a step back from our relationship. And I think it was like Valentine's Day, or somewhere around that point, we had went out for this really nice new restaurant that opened up in Charlotte. It was this Greek place, and it was amazing food. But dude, I didn't have money for this dinner. Like I I knew I had like $230 to my name, and I was like, I ordered.
I'll have the salad.
Dude, I ordered 2 drinks for myself, and I was like, I knew right off the bat, I'm like, I'm probably way past the limit, like we're just gonna see what it comes out to. And it's as ridiculous as it sounds, like that's really where I was at. So you understand, like,
Yeah.
just how crazy out of my mind I was about uh the reality of life, and how disconnected I was from, what it took actually to build a life. And I remember I got the bill, and I just kind of sat there with it, and just trying to maintain conversation, play it off. he takes my card, gets declined. Needless to say, I ask her, I'm like, hey, would you mind, going out and waiting in the car for me? And we drove separately. So
Right.
she just left. She was like, I'm not dealing with this. She said it like to my face, like, this is embarrassing. Got up, left. And I remember driving back to the gym because that's where I was going to go stay because I didn't have a place to rest my head, because of the reality I created for myself. And I was just sitting there like shaking the wheel. Bro, I pulled my car into oncoming traffic trying to hit someone. They swerved. I swerved back because I terrified myself. And I was so close to wanting to, well, I did want to end my life, but I was so close to ending my life. God had other plans. And now, it's funny how you look back on those things and you're like, we were laughing because it just sounds ridiculous. But at the time, dealing with those things were like, it was really painful for me because I didn't know how to break out of that cycle, but I knew I was done. I didn't care how I was going to do it, but I was going to do it because I was done. I couldn't live like that anymore. And yeah, I went about a year, for almost a year living, in that situation where I was floating between friends' couches, living in my car, not really having a stable place. Um, and so it got pretty rough there for a little bit, but that was the moment that I decided I was done. I started changing a lot of things, and then um, the past couple of years, I've made really great money in real estate. I've been dedicated to building my business and recreating, structure within my life. Who was there anyone who was necessarily like standing by your side during all this and just helping encourage you, or was it really just you against the beast?
No, I'd say I've had a great um support system. It's my wife, she's amazing. It's even when even when nobody else knew. So like, dude, I promise you nobody else in my life knew. The agents that worked with me, friends, family, like nobody knew. And that was, like I said, my thing was like home. I'd chill on the couch and like either play video games or watch sports. Um, and my wife has been like my biggest supporter, even though she still chooses to drink. And she, like I go to the store and buy it for her. Like I don't care. Like I
Yep.
literally don't. That's the level of like recovery or strength I'm at with it. So but a good part of that is alone, right? You can only support somebody so much. I mean, the work and going to the meetings and actually sitting there and working through your BS and fixing your finances. So my wife, she's always stayed at the house and taking care of the family and the house. So as far as me getting us out of our financial situation, that was on me. And I've been blessed that a few family members have helped out over the years when we got into bad spots. So I am blessed there. But so yeah, I've few support system, but again, man, it's at the end of the day, we're the ones that have to do the heavy lifting. It's great to have that support, but if you don't have that support in your life, if you're listening to this, like that's okay too. Like it's you're gonna have to get serious about getting your stuff figured out, and not only that, and it's not just like and another thing I want to talk about too is it's not there's an identity shift that happens too, right? So it's like you have to first, yeah, get your stuff figured out, but you also have to, not sugarcoat it either. So in other words, when I made the identity shift and like my friends were like, "Oh, come on, man, do this," and I'm like, "No, man, I don't, I don't drink. I appreciate you." I didn't never say like, "Oh, look, I'm really trying to do this because of health reasons and I need to get." It's like, no, this is my identity now. Um, So yeah, I mean, it's good to have that support, but if you don't, it's at the end of the day, it's all about, do you want to change your identity? If so, get to work, and you can do it. It's 100%. You just got to be willing, be honest. That's the hardest part too, right? Is at the times I was BSing myself and telling myself this story probably like, dude, I would use you as an example, to be honest. Like, oh man, I'm not living in my car. Like, I'm not that bad, you know. I just, just falling behind or this or that. You're BSing yourself. If you are living below your fullest potential, you know it, and you're always going to know it. And trying to hide that or numb yourself to it's not going to change anything. It's, there's a saying that, ignoring your problems or drinking to wind to check out, or whatever you do to check out, your problems don't go away. They're in the other room doing push-ups, waiting for you to be done, and then they're coming right back at you. And
Yeah.
they're bigger and stronger now because you're avoiding them, you're ignoring them. And like I said, dude, they're not just sitting back like chilling. They're getting stronger. They're doing
Yeah.
push-ups, jumping jacks, bench pressing. They're just waiting on you to be done with whatever you're doing and check out, and they're coming right back at you.
Yeah. Coming back to take your lunch money.
Absolutely. Shake you up, put you upside down and shake you, son.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny how that works. After that time frame that I tried to pull a car into oncoming traffic after this dinner that I had with my ex. And after that, I worked in the shadows to like begin changing and stuff like that. I didn't necessarily quit drinking, but because in my head, I still didn't identify that as like part of the problem. Um, but I did start changing, a lot of my personal behaviors and things like that. Um, what really helped me, create change was once, Megan and I, my ex-wife, started, I guess, getting back together. She was actually starting this program through Celebrate Recovery, which is basically like a Christian version of NA or AA.
Yeah, they have those in
It's
my area. I'm
Yeah,
familiar.
it's not specific just towards, alcohol or narcotics, but it's, for anyone who is recovering from any
Bro,
past
it could
hangups.
be food, you know?
It could be food. Yeah, it's literally anything. So, but it's a Christian based. So it has biblical understanding, it has biblical principles. And um, whenever she introduced me to that, I was like, "Ah, I don't need like that kind of like, sobriety program or anything like that."
Ha, I got a story for that too. Go ahead.
But yeah, so I'm excited to hear it. So whenever we started going, I was like, yeah, these are actually really good and really beneficial. And then we did like a step study program, which is like the next step for, Celebrate Recovery. And basically what you do is you go through this program where it took us, I think like 8 months for us to complete. And I think we started with 7 people in our group. We ended up with only 4 who finished. And going through that step study program, you do a deep dive, man. You go into your family history, your history, what personally has been holding you back, who's the people you hurt, and you just start. It's an accountability program. You start really being accountable towards your past actions, who you were in your past life, why you made those decisions, who you hurt along the way, and basically how you can, start moving your life in a different direction, just by simply taking accountability for where you were and where you want to be.
Yep, absolutely. So my story there is my therapist, okay, that I was talking to years back. One of the first things he brought up was like, have you ever thought about going to AA? And dude, I told him literally, no, my people aren't in there. I thought so highly of myself, okay? Just to recap, okay? Alcoholic, struggling to stop drinking, behind on my bills, behind on my promises, not living up to my fullest potential. I think so highly of myself because of what I do for a living and the agents that are in my office that are working with me, that I think I'm different or special. You know what you find out when you go in those rooms?
You're
There
not the exception.
there are realtors in there. There are surgeons, there are doctors, there are
Yep.
lawyers. Like, bro, it has nothing to do with whatever class or profession you think you're good at, So yeah, just again, fresh recap. Behind on my bills, nothing saved. And I thought so highly of myself that I was like, no, my people aren't in there. And I quickly found out, or not quickly, years later when I actually walked into that room for the first time, it's like, no, that's your people, bro. Like every, you know,
Yep.
stories you think are unique to you or things you say out loud and everybody laughs. It's like, no, this is a universal thing. This has nothing to do with whatever you think you are, how special or sweet you think you are at your job, or how much value you think you have. Like this gets anybody. It gets anybody.
Hmm.
Doesn't care where you are, who you are.
What what did that surrender look like for you, or how did it feel?
So it was after the I would say like 3 days after the car got repossessed and the lights got shut off. I went in on a Saturday morning. So this might have all happened on a Tuesday, and I was like, all right, I need to take 3 days to just to get, I dried out. I was like, okay, and I found like, dude, it's such a God thing because the skies parted. Usually I would wake up like feeling pretty rough, and that was usually bad because I would think like, okay, I just need to, get a little something and I'll be right. That's like the level I got to.
Mhm.
And it was just, so it's after that happened, the day after I woke up the next morning and I still drank that day, believe it or not, the repossession and the lights getting shut off. But I woke up the next day and for some reason I did not feel nearly as bad as I should have. Like I felt as normal as I do now. And I was like, okay, this is my day. This is my day to just white knuckle it. White knuckled it for a few days, went into the room for the first time on a Saturday, and the guy Jim, we call him Saturday Jim. He's the chair on Saturdays. Um, we go around the room. You say who you introduce yourself and say, I'm an alcoholic. Or if you're visiting, you say I'm visiting. And I said I'm an alcoholic for the first time out loud.
Mhm.
It's the first time I said it out loud. And for me, that was so freeing because it wasn't my little secret anymore. It wasn't, me on my couch and just my wife having a suspicion and my kids probably knowing, hey, I think dad drinks a little bit too much. It was the first time I said it to a room full of 15 people. And for me, it was very freeing because, what, what do they say? Like, what stays in the dark just gets worse. And it was, I've put a big flashlight on that dusty cobwebbed corner of my life and just said it. And it was really freeing. And, I got my little 24-hour, my wife calls them doubloons because we're in New Orleans and we call those little coins doubloons.
Yeah.
Um, the guy that handed it to me, I love what he said. He's like, all right, look, man, he's like, if you ever think about having a drink, you just put this under your tongue. As soon as it dissolves, you can have a drink. And I was like, all right, got it. Uh, so yeah, that was the start. I'd go every morning, 7:30, and you know, just listen to other people, started talking a little bit more. And that was like it's free therapy, dude. You bring in $1, drop it in the cup, get some coffee. So that became my new therapy for a good time until I did the steps and do what I'd call like consider myself fully recovered.
Yeah.
I keep my guard up. I don't ever pretend like, something can't grab me. So but yeah, fully recovered.
So was going through like the hardest part of getting sober, was it the build up to the point where you were fed up? Or do you think the hardest part of getting sober started the day that you knew that you needed to get sober?
It was for me, it was a buildup, right? It's like, it wasn't just like all of a sudden, oh, okay, this is need to stop. Like, I like what Tony Robbins says because he's like, most people think, it takes 10 years to change and it doesn't. All it takes is a split second, right? Of it just, there has to be that I've had enough. So it took me 5 years to have that moment. But as soon as that moment hit, that was it. So I would say a mixture between build up, but also there has to be the point where you say you have to put your foot, make that proverbial line in the sand and say, make a declaration and be like, this is it, bro. I can't. And for me, it was rolling into my 30. I was 39, go turning 40 on November 23rd. I went in the room on I think November 16th. And I was like, I'm not, that is it. I cannot drag this into my 40s. At the time, my daughter was, my oldest daughter was 18, still, she had just moved out of the house, 19. My other daughter was what, 16, and my other daughter was 10. It's like, this is enough. Like, You at some point we have to break whatever cycle that is. Whatever our BS reason is, and excuse me, but once you get to a certain point of recovery, you're like, okay, this is all stuff that yeah, this is unfortunate that happened, but I'm the one dragging this up, and I'm the one choosing to use these things. So once you we're responsible for breaking that, right? For breaking that cycle. So yeah, a build up, the snapping point, and then realizing like
Yeah.
I get to set the new expectation for my family moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm the one that gets to set the example.
Yeah. What emotions came up when you're kind of going through those different stages?
Um, I'd say it was like a mixture of going through those stages. You mean like towards the recovery part? I think what a lot of people don't talk about is there's like almost like a mourning process of like the person that you used to be, right? Because it
Mhm.
was really tough for me because I have a lot of friends, like I said, um, crawfish boils, when the fun times were really fun, right? But the sad parts were really sad. So for me, it was the hardest. The thing I had to really make peace with was the identity shift. It's like, okay, this is the person. I'm no longer this person that used to be the life of the party at the get-togethers, and that's that was the sad part too for me was like, I was again, we go back to our stories, like, I was never the guy at the party that was like, "Oh, man, don't go around him, he gets mean." Like, I was just how I am now is just I was super speedy. I was even funnier and more outgoing.
Super
Um,
speedy.
yeah, I was even funnier, more outgoing, like, more, I was just more, but what nobody saw and why people don't think I really had a problem was they didn't see the day after. They didn't see, like, the utter depression that was the day after of an event like that because so I already pretty naturally, like, have a tendency to have not depression, but low, I was diagnosed with mild bipolar disorder, which is just there's not crazy highs, there's not crazy lows. It's just there's extended moments of high and there's extended moments of being a little bit below baseline. So if you already have that tendency chemically, like when you drink and you come and you're down the next day, it is low, low. So people didn't see that. So they didn't really, yeah, I still to this day, their friends like, man, yeah, I didn't think you had a problem at all. It's like, yeah, because you saw me at my best. You didn't see me the next day when I was like just
Yeah.
so depressed. I couldn't even get off the couch for the whole day.
Yeah.
So yeah,
How did your self-talk change during those times?
it was identity shift 100%. Like, when I go to get-togethers and parties, like, "Hey, man, you want anything?" It's like, "No, I don't." It was a declaration. It's identity shift. "No, thank you, I don't drink." But most people don't have the bravery to say that when they're going through their recovery, or maybe not even going through recovery. Maybe you're just trying to stop, or maybe you're just trying to, most people try this. I'm gonna try to slow it down a little bit. I'm gonna try to control it more, and that's BS because if I were to go to my friend's house and be like, oh well, no thanks, man. I'm trying to cut down so I can lose some weight or whatever. It's like no, it was the self talk for me was the identity shift. I'm not immediately now. I'm not this person anymore. And it's when you shut it down like that, it's like I've never gotten pushback. My friends be like, "Oh man, you want to drink or something?" No, thanks, man. I'm good. Or you could just say I'm good. You don't even have to say I don't drink. Like, no, that's a powerful word. No, I'm good.
And sometimes it can just be that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you talked about, the morning or the night of and the morning after. So how did when you partied and you woke up in the morning, how does that look different than now when you wake up in the mornings?
Oh, dude, every morning's the same. Like only people that no, pretty much everybody can relate to this story because everybody's drank to the point where you're hungover the next morning.
Yep.
Um, what I don't miss and what I love now is I don't have to wake up and take inventory of like, before I would even crack my eyes open, as soon as my brain would activate, the first thing I would think was like, okay, I mean, it's how bad is this going to be? Let me see, is this going to be a bad day, good day? Now I just wake up and every day is the same. And I think it's something else that not enough people talk about either is, I'm just going to be honest with you. When you're after you change your lifestyle like that, it's more boring than it was before. And that's okay. Like every day, it doesn't have to be crazy highs and crazy lows. Just every day being the same for me was powerful because I'll put it to you like this. I used to purposely not schedule stuff on Mondays because I knew I would be down Monday because Saints games, whatever, you know, drinking on Sundays. I would schedule stuff. I would start all my listing appointments and all that stuff on Tuesdays.
Mhm.
Now I can schedule some it's freedom. And that's another thing that people don't talk about either is freedom. I
Yeah.
can set something on my schedule at any time of the day, any time of the morning, and I know I'm going to show up and be 100% the same dude. Um, so it's there's power in that because you reclaim all of that back.
Mm.
And really, like, people think they're giving something up. I felt like that for a long time, I think. Like, I'm giving this part up, and this, like I said, the fun times were fun, right? But the bad times were the sad times were sad.
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize the true freedom that comes from releasing that and
Mm.
knowing what you're gonna show up like every day, you know?
Okay. Yeah. What is that, I guess, is that like the most surprising thing to you about being sober? Is just the real like how streamlined, your life can be when you're just fully clear of, what you need to do and, you know, not getting into chaos, but just focusing on the clarity.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it shows up, and I don't think you people realize how much you can positively impact those around you who might be struggling with the same thing, they just don't say it out loud. I've had so many of my friends and family members reach out to me privately, like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." Like, and and it was because I was the first one in the family to step out and be like, "Hey, I'm changing this." Specifically on my mom's side of the family, just riddled with drinking problems. Dad's side of the family, like I said, a little bit more solid, more like level-headed. So I'm glad that I have that yin and yang. But having the bravery to step out, I don't think you realize how positively you can influence people around you, and also set the tone for your family. Like all the stuff I was talking about with my kids earlier, now they talk differently about me. So my oldest daughter now, when I was doing 75 hard like 2 years ago, I went straight from 75 hard to phase one, which is 105 days in a row of two workouts, diet, all that. And I told my daughter, I was like, "Yeah, I'm on day like 95 or something like that." She's like, "Oh, I knew it." She's like, "You are such a badass." And so the stark contrast from my kids seeing me struggle and when she was a teenager to seeing me now and calling, dude, I can't describe to you what that meant to have your daughter say that about you, you know? So anyway, I know I'm varying off here, but
Oh, you're doing great, Walter. I appreciate, all the extra tidbits and perspective that you offered from, your experience in life and through recovery. What kind of impact do you feel you're called to make now in your life?
help people, help people. So I was in church, um, I want to say it's about a year and a half ago specifically. I had this moment, and our pastor's up on stage, and we were going through it's a program called Freedom. So
Mm.
it's what's funny is the Freedom thing you go through is very similar to the steps of any program. It's probably the same as Celebrate Recovery. It's the same playbook, dude. It works.
Yeah.
It's the same blueprint. You don't have to find, and that's the other thing too. You don't have to find AA or anything. Like they all pretty much run the same playbook. Do the steps, do the work, and you'll get there. But our pastor was up on stage one day, and he's like, "I want everybody to clear your minds and think just what your purpose is, what God's purpose is for you in your life. If there were no checkbooks, no commission checks, no money involved whatsoever, what is the one thing that you would do if money were no object?" And the first thing that came to my head with like a lightning bolt was just help people.
Mm.
Um, And that's what I bring to not only like people that are looking to struggle here, but that's what I bring into the real estate agents that come in with me and work with me. I don't talk about just how awesome I was in my sales career. I talk about all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I think if you're not fully honest with people about everything, you're not really gonna, you stay surface level and you're not really gonna help anybody. So, and also don't think that me quietly recovering and not just keeping it to myself and staying private about everything, that's not helpful either. It's helpful for me, yeah, sure, but um, if you're really going to make an impact or attempt to make an impact with anybody, um, you got to be honest about everything and tell your story. That's why I put my hand up and said, "Yeah, dude, I would love to help." Because even if this helps one person get it together, dude, worth every second of
Amen.
of all of this.
Amen, dude. So, in light of that, we'll have the last closing question here for you. So, if someone's listening today and maybe it feels like they're just too far gone, too far down the rabbit hole, way, you know, habits are set in, this is who I am. What do you want them to know about the future that's waiting for them?
Dude, yeah, first of all, I like that because I mean, it took me what, 4 decades to get it together? Like, so I hear you, but it's like, man, you at any moment you could change. And I want to be very clear before I say what I'm about to say next. I did not change my life and expect blessings, but blessings came. Um, Less than 2 months after I got in those rooms and got it together, an opportunity came my way. And it was from a buddy of mine gave me a call, a buddy of mine at the time, and he was my real estate coach. So he kind of he knew some of my struggles. I just had to be honest about my struggles sometimes because the the alternative was just saying I'm wildly incompetent and I don't listen to your directions. I would just have to say like, hey man, I'm struggling today because I overdid it this weekend. So anyway, he calls me with this opportunity. I didn't know it was an opportunity at the time. He's like, "Hey man, how you doing?" I was like, "Dude, I'm doing great. I haven't drank in like 2 or 3 months. It's the longest I have not drank. Sadly, it was the longest I hadn't drank since I was 18 years old, at the almost 40." And he's like, "That's awesome, man, because I got something for you, and I was not gonna offer it to you if uh if you hadn't if you hadn't changed that part of your life." It was a salary gig to go recruit and train and help other agents. Um, so not just that, like a few months. So there's one small part of my story I need to tell. Before I got my first year of sobriety, I was like, all right, I've been sober for 9 months now. Surely I can use the discipline that I've gained over the 9 months to go back to drinking like I used to in my 20s. I didn't want to give that up. It was tough because, like I said, you remember the good times, not the bad times.
Mm,
And I went back. I set my family down. I had a plan. I was like, look, I'm going to see if I can do this like I used to be able to. If I can't, you guys need to be honest with me because I need to go right back in. So, did not work out. I was on my best behavior for like 2 weeks and then it slowly drifted back to the same behavior. So, I got back in January. 3 months after I got sober, again, a state broker position opens up with a company that that I worked with previously. So, there's this pattern of me getting my life together and opportunities coming my way. And there's no way you can convince me otherwise that these opportunities didn't come my way because I made the significant change. Now, with that being said, I don't again, you can't do it from the wrong perspective.
mm.
If you
Yeah.
do like, "Oh, I'm gonna get it together because I need more money and I want blessings and opportunities," that's the cart before the horse. You have to do this first, and then I believe, look, I cannot guarantee anything, but the God that I follow rewards those who are obedient.
Mm,
So the life that's coming for people that decide to get it together, one, it's never too late. It took me 4 decades to get it figured out. Two, blessings will come your way if you're obedient and doing the right things. Um, Again, I can't promise you that. I can only tell you my story. And again, emphasize that you should not do it to get something. It's not transactional. oh, I'll do this if I'm going to get this in return. That's not how that works. You do the work first, and then I promise you, opportunities will come your way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. One day at a time, one moment at a time.
Yep.
If you can start there, you know, you can rebuild and reshape your life. But it's also just knowing you got to overcome the temporary, the emotions, the fear, the grief, the guilt. There's a
Right.
lot of shame involved so often in recovery, and if you can break through those boundaries, the opportunities are endless.
Right.
Well, Walter, thank you for trusting me and the space and sharing your story. Um, if you're listening to this and you feel like you're stuck or tired, unsure if change is really possible, let this be proof that it is. And you don't have to have it all figured out now. You just have to be present and take this one honest step at a time. This is the Sober Broker. And if you're rebuilding, you're not alone. And we welcome you here, and we'd love to have you back for more. You guys can like, subscribe, and just stay tuned for the next episode. We appreciate you greatly.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. You're doing good work here. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks, Walter.
You got it, man.